welcome to 2023, the year to watch more movies. And lo and behold, we are in January, the month that is self-proclaimed as the dumpster fire of movies. Why? Well, I think I said it many times that is usually the month in which we have movies that probably they're being seen like, well, they're not going to be very good, it's not going to attract a lot of people because, well, hey, the holidays are over, so let's just put something at least to, accommodate the scheduling of movies. But we're not going to, we're going to promise that we're not going to show you, how can I say, Oscar baits or blockbusters. Not many people are technically be on the mood, I would say. So we don't care. And usually these kind of movies comes off as being kind of like clumsy or bad, or sometimes so bad it's good in a way or another. And that third category is something that I was waiting for this one, that for the latest movie that came out right now. And the one that I'm talking about is none other than M3GAN or M3GAN. Well, it's called M3GAN. They call it M3GAN. They think it was cute to put that number 3 on the E. And this is something that I've seen it before. There's this webcomic that called Season 3, which is basically a fan webcomic, which is technically a unofficial continuation to the Sonic the Hedgehog Saturday morning cartoon, and it also had the E replaced by a 3 or something like that. So anyway, I was actually how can I say, anticipating this movie ever since the first time I saw it. I was kind of like saying that, oh, it's going to be a January movie. Oh, it's going to be the one that starts out the January movie. Normally, this is what happened to most horror movies that comes out. And by the way, this movie is also from Blumhouse Studios. And if you know me, I do have a little bit of kind of like a certain respect. Sorry for the ambulance. I have a certain respect to Blumhouse Studios that sometimes they gave me good movies, sometimes they gave me bad movies that I hate, or sometimes they gave me good movies but still leave you something to talk about, at least to have some laughable experience or something like that. And I was kind of anticipating that emotion for M3GAN, which is some. From the trailer, you can tell exactly what it's gonna be about. Robot AI get the AI get, how can I say, goes in the wrong directions, and it technically it turns into what Child's Play or Terminator tried to warn us. But I didn't care. It was gonna be something, especially when the trailer showed you a scene in which the robot kind of break dance and doing the robot and kind of like and something like that, and it's kind of, and it was like, what were they thinking? This is something that I have to watch. Lo and behold, I did, and let me tell you, this movie was actually pretty solid in filmmaking. There are some flaws here and there that I can go through, but what I never expected from this movie is that that it's gonna give out not only a PG-13 horror, but play the cards at least well enough to keep you intrigued, alongside kind of like a warning about having technology taking care of children, which is something that has been debated a long time, in which now we are in an era that we are dependent on smartphones, iPod, something like that. And then they say that, okay, we're gonna let our children, we're gonna leave our children, how can I say, being taken care of by this artificial intelligence, so we don't have to do it ourselves. They cleverly do that in at least the sense of how can I say, in the sense of a PG-13 horror. So, you know what? Let's dive in. I'm kind of really eager to talk to you about. So, what the movie's about? Well, it mostly centers on this roboticist named Gemma. She's played by what was the name of the actress again? Let me see here. I'm horrible with names. Allison Williams. This roboticist named Gemma. She works on this company which it creates kind of like these Furby dolls. They look like Furbies, but mostly I actually remember. Have you ever seen Chicken Little? The Disney Chicken Little, the CGI one, and the aliens from that movie. Did they create those toys that look like these creatures, but even creepier? And they do bodily functions. Ew. So, but well, she's a roboticist. She's trying to create this advanced robot, to keep to keep out against the competition and the protest. And even though the boss kind of protest against it, she wants to make this advanced doll that can communicate with children and to interact with them, make them more intelligent. But unfortunately, then she gets the custody and becomes the legal guardian of her niece named Katie, played by Violet McGraw, because she recently loses her parents in a car accident. And from that point, it goes a little bit downhill because the aunt character Gemma, she's not very good at it. She doesn't even know what to do. Things are very sudden. She doesn't even trying with the help of a therapist doesn't even help. So she's like, oh my god, what I should do? I know. Let's make her kind of like my test subject for my latest experiment. And so she creates the doll and she calls it M3GAN, which is kind of like an acronym to, I think it was called mechanical three generated android, something like that. I'm not exactly remember exactly what the acronym meant, but it was, again, mechanical three generated android, protocol android, something like that. What did I say? Generated android. Yeah, I think that was like that. Sorry that you have to see me, working my thoughts and remembering what it is. But basically, yeah, basically the little girl, she just feel attached to the doll because the doll begins to communicate with her. She begins to bond with the object that listens to her problems, listens to her sadness, and she even reads her stories. She defends her even from the most basic things. But then things get a little bit twisted when she begins to take her command of protecting Katie in a more sinister way. That basically she turns into from what you see from the trailer, she turns into a killer robot to anyone that wrongs her target or something like that. I've seen these kind of movies, and actually it's kind of like a common thing in cartoons in which someone you get a robot. The robot kind of takes orders very literally and wreaks havoc, and they put it in movie form. Sorry about that. Okay. But let's get on a little bit with the acting before I go with the other things, because we got a lot of characters here and there. We got, for example, our Allison Williams as our main protagonist. That is a roboticist, and while this character, she starts out, like a character that you understand why she's not exactly good with what she's doing, to the point that she's very irresponsible. I mean, she's very sucked up into her work. Her work is kind of like her life, but then and then come out of nowhere comes kind of like this tragedy that she loses her sister, and her brother-in-law or son-in-law, whatever we want to call it, and now she has to take care of her niece. And for a moment, I kind of wish that the character was like, you know what, I kind of hate that kid. I don't know what to say it, but I wanted to hate that kid. Mind you, I'm not saying that the niece character is bad or something like that. She acts actually very well as child actors go. It wasn't annoying, and it wasn't exactly sugar-coated. Although she comes off a little bit smarter than I think 8-year-old, something like that. But continuing on with the aunt, she's very self-absorbed into her own work. She cares more about completing her life's work instead of taking the responsibility of taking care of a child. Although it didn't beg the question why nobody else wanted to take care of the child. Does the child doesn't have a grandmother or another aunt or uncle or something like that? It didn't explain something like that, but for the sake of simplicity, they just put onto her, and the movie I will say that if I can find a little bit of a slop in it, is that there are times in which they wanted to show that the character technically kind of like hated her sister and to the point that she doesn't want to feel responsible of her niece, and she's like something like that, and this is why she just dumps her with the robot or something like that. But it doesn't go exactly that far, but at least it does enough to give out kind of like a clue about this character. Not exactly kind of like in high mean-spirited. I'm not talking about making it, mean-spirited or something like that, but you can tell that this is a character that she sucks on it. And a lot of things that happen is basically her fault. She doesn't even have a kind of like a good relationship with the neighbor, but let's be honest, you don't even want that kind of neighbor, because her neighbor is technically this woman who is always grumpy, always how can I explain? She technically waters her plants or I don't know, it just wasn't watering. She basically uses these kind of sprinklers to poison the bugs or something like that. But it's one of those women, of course, that she leaves a hole in the fence, and every time she has a dog that gets to the other side of the yard, and it's not exactly a pleasant dog. It's one of those that it can bite you whatever you do wrong. And this woman will come and say, "Hey, it's your fault. You haven't. It's your fence. It's your fence. You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta fix it or something like that." It's one of those women. And the more this movie goes on, she evolves from annoying woman to Karen. So you kind of I kind of understand why you don't want to have nothing to do with that kind of neighbor. At least I'll say. And by the way, there is a moment in which this dog bites, I'll say, at least for the sake of spoiler. And one of the things that I can tell you is that I've seen something similar like that in real life. If a dog bites technically a child, that dog immediately can be sued. You can't sue the owner because, well, it's something. An injury is a serious thing. Well, but I'm not exactly kind of like the. I'm not exactly very knowledgeable about laws or something like that, especially considering there's a dog bite in it. Okay, I think I talk a bit too much about the aunt character. I did specifically said about the child. I'll say there is the therapist. The therapist basically, she doesn't do very much in the movie except kind of like showing the risk between this character. Kind of like how broken it's kind of like relationship between the aunt and the niece. And there's also kind of like the boss. The boss is played by what was the name of the guy? Ronnie Ching. This guy is basically kind of like this very strict, very kind of greedy boss that he's like, we gotta do something. You have to keep it resolved because we're against the competition. Which is basically the competition is the same Furbies, but this time with their butts that glow. And when he finally sees the result of M3GAN, he's like, bravo, we're gonna speed this up. And kid you not, one of my favorite lines that he said on the movie is like, we're gonna kick Hasbro in the dick. That line made me laugh because there are other reasons I want to kick Hasbro in the nuts. But I'm not gonna say it because it's something personal. But still, that line kind of made me laugh or something like that. But basically, yeah, he's kind of like the boss that is overly greedy. He cares about going against the competition, and he sees kind of like hope into marketing M3GAN. And now that I think about it, I haven't talked about the doll itself because if there's something if the biggest highlight of the movie is M3GAN herself. The doll basically she befriends the Katie character, and she does it in a robotic way, and she basically kind of defends her in every single way possible, both verbally and in action. And I gotta say that for the robot effects are pretty good. I haven't even noticed kind of like a slight moment in which it feels kind of like artificial. Well, it is an artificial thing, but sometimes you could notice some kind of like bad CGI or something like that. I'm not exactly sure which parts are CGI or which parts is basically kind of like someone in a dress or in a costume or with the makeup, or sometimes you get real robotic effects. That makes me curious, and I want to know which direction did they go with it. But because the robot effects that they did they're essentially pretty good. And as a M3GAN character, and as the character of M3GAN, I could see that there's moments in which you actually root for this character because honestly, the people that she pick on, they kind of deserve it. And they kind of deserve it because these people are either mean or they're straight up bullies. But destructive bullies. Like you see in the trailer in which M3GAN technically picks on this kid that when they go to this camp school reunion, and basically this kid kind of becomes a big jerk, so much that M3GAN actually did kind of like a favor to the world. I'm not exactly kind of like condoning death to anyone or something like that, but for the sake of the movie, sometimes M3GAN kind of is more doing that kind of like an anti-hero job than any superhero, something like that. So it's hard. It kind of makes us hard to not root for M3GAN when she basically picks on people that kind of deserve that. Maybe maybe one or two people later in the movie, but it comes up a little bit too late to make us, you know, that feel that we should not root for this character. And when she comes up with, and so basically she does kind of like a, well, for lack of a better word, more of a good job to more of a good job than any other babysitter can do. Of course, that in a twisted way, because we as an audience know that when an artificial intelligence goes too far or too strict on their function, you're technically gonna end up like Skynet. And speaking of AI, can you believe that this doll, mechanical robot, she actually also managed to control other technology, and this is where you find it very similar to the remake of Child's Play, but this time it's better because the whole plot doesn't revolve that the whole problem started up with a disgruntled Vietnamese worker, like again the remake of Child's Play. So that actually makes it a little bit more believable and, well, less stupid. But either way, that kind of ups the tension when M3GAN goes on the rampage, as you can see. I already talked a little bit of the cinematography, which is technically basic, but still, I also still very curious to know about the M3GAN effects that are pretty good. And what else I can talk about it? What else I can talk without spoiling too much? Well, I did mention a little bit of the theme that the movie that it kind of makes it an allegory about the relationship between children and objects, or technology in this case, because as the movie progresses, Katie becomes very, very, very dependable on M3GAN. She carries it everywhere, and she doesn't want to part ways with the robot. It's almost like it's almost like, you know, when children doesn't want to part from smartphones, video games, or iPad, something like that. Well, which come to think of it, is not that different from what we are living in nowadays, even as adults. So, again, sorry about the ambulance. This is something that I can't control because I live in an apartment, and I live kind of like 5 blocks from 5 blocks, yeah, 5 or 10 blocks from the hospital. So this is inevitable. Okay, while I was continuing on, is that it kind of shows that, but it also showcases kind of like in the aunt character, in which, like I said, this character is kind of self-absorbed onto her work, and she doesn't want to take the responsibility of taking care of a child, which a lot of people are doing right now. That they instead of doing the job yourself, you want to let a technology take direction of your children's lives, even if that comes off kind of like comes off as unhealthy, or how can I say it? It kind of comes off as kind of unhealthy or really dependable, that you don't know what to do, especially when it kind of showcasing. Although it does kind of have a nice arc in which the aunt character kind of begins to realize that, you know what, maybe I should have taken some responsibility, even a little bit too late. Even comes when, you know, it comes with a moment in which there was a little audience in the movie theater that I went to, but they were reactive to it. The audience really ate up the movie because they were reacting to during the whole movie. It even comes a part in which I'm not gonna exactly say what happened, but it comes out as that this character got what she deserved, and I was like, yes. you had it coming. She had it coming. But and from that point, the movie kind of finds a way to redeem a kind of like an unlikable character, but at the same time, it's not exactly kind of like unlikable like a jerk, but it's more like kind of like a human. And honestly, this movie could have, if I could say another negative of this movie, is that this movie could have taken opportunities to make it a little bit more, how could I describe, more creepy. That's what this is a little bit criticizing a bit the ending, because the ending kind of went a little bit safe, although it kind of gives out a little bit of a cliffhanger, saying like, uh-oh, it's not over yet. I don't know if this is going to tease out a sequel or something like that, but honestly, I don't think that a sequel is needed. And yeah, it plays out kind of like the basic cards. It doesn't go, it doesn't feel kind of like going overly ambitious, or, and even myself, I can think of kind of like a more creepier ending, but it didn't go that way. Another thing that I hear people complaining about this movie while I was on the bus and hearing Double Toasted or something like that, is that the PG-13 technically kind of ruins the gory aspects that this movie had. And yet, I do agree that this movie could have been very gory or very bloody. There is blood, but not kind of like a blood fest. But I think that the movie kind of earned itself a little bit of a pass. The killings are not exactly, how can I say, wow or something like that. Except probably you could remember one or two. Well, especially one, because it does have to do with that M3GAN goes into a hall and making all this moves like that kind of comes off as unintentionally hilarious. Or could I call it unintentional? Maybe they did intentionally make it hilarious. That's what I don't know. Maybe it wasn't intentionally hilarious, so they could say, hey, how can we market this movie? I don't know. Make her dance. This dance is actually kind of like the most memorable that we can think about this movie. And by the way, yet it comes up almost like for apparent no reason. It's just kind of like increased the tension of that you see in the hallway, and then before you die, she's gonna put on the groove. But like I was saying, there's not exactly so much blood, but still kind of makes it a little bit of a safe movie to watch. I'll say for the sake of people, teenagers. But I think teenagers can grow, with a little bit of blood and guts, or kind of like, because I know that teenagers they might watch the John Carpenter's The Thing, or that kind of reminds me that today I saw the trailer of Evil Dead Rises. And just on the get-go, I want to say that I'm anticipating this movie, but I don't have, high hopes, because I was actually a little bit disappointed with the Evil Dead remake. But maybe I will be wrong. Maybe I'm gonna be wrong. But I do remember that these movies can be very bloody and very gory, and teenagers can go there for kind of like a spectacle of blood and gore. Some will have a reaction, but you know what? That's the point of the movie. But again, that's I'm not saying that you should do that. I mean, you have your choices, and M3GAN kind of earned that pass. I think they kind of earned that pass, that it doesn't need it to be exactly kind of like a blood and gore spectacle, especially when you want to brings out this analogy about children being exposed and being dependent to technology, and what happened if that technology kind of becomes so sentient, so intelligent, so self-aware, that so much that it has it becomes a powerful thing, and becomes deadly. That kind of makes me think also how strong that M3GAN character is, because it becomes a very, very strong. But otherwise, do I give M3GAN a recommendation from me? Absolutely. Absolutely. For a January movie, it wasn't exactly that bad. I was expecting something bad, but kind of like in the style of, what was it? Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. But I didn't get that. Probably we're gonna get that thing next week. What do I get? Next week there is the House Party, which I'm not interested, but I am interested in that plane movie, I'll say. Maybe these ones will go in that territory. But I know that there's one January movie that probably is gonna be very, very bad. Almost like the Tainting of the Screw or something like that. Or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. But for M3GAN, it's an interesting watch. Blumhouse Studio did manage to entertain me again, so check it out. And in the meantime, let's pop up the M3GAN groove.